Hey guys, it is Tiffany out here, and I'm coming to you after an amazing mastery chat over on Twitter that I just spent the last hour typing like a mad woman. And I'm sure that this guy right here did the same for the last hour. This is Scott. Scott, how you doing?
Doing great. How are you doing, Tiffany?
I'm good. Was the chat a little hectic for you?
Yes, but very enjoyable at the same time.
Good. Okay, so the topic tonight for all of you guys watching was about cross-curricular lessons, and I love this topic so much. I started my career in an international baccalaureate school, and that just kind of like got its hooks into me. And so anywhere that I can connect content makes me super duper happy. So I was so excited when I saw Scott sign up to do this chat on that topic. Before we get into the chat and kind of break down, talk about the questions and the answers, Scott, can you give us a little 30-second rundown of who you are and what your role in education is?
Yeah, I can do that. So I'm Scott Nunes. I'm an ELA teacher out of Modesto, California, and I love EdTech, and I'm also the co-host of the TNT EdTech podcast. So
Ooh,
I
I didn't know
love
this.
sharing out. Yeah.
Yeah, TNT. Tell me again.
Yeah, TNT like dynamite and then EdTech, all
Yes.
one word. And you can find us on Twitter at TNT EdTech or via the web, www.tntedtech.com. And we're on all the major podcasting apps.
That's awesome. I actually just put a comment down in the live stream for this video, or I clicked the button too, and eventually it will. And so I've got the information for that podcast, and everybody watching the video can go check it out. I love podcasts.
Oh,
I used to actually not love them because I was like, who has time to listen to podcasts? And then our team actually put out our Teach Better Talk podcast. I think we're getting close to episode 100 now. And I started listening to it because I'm kind of obligated to, because it's for our team, and I'm hooked. So I'm excited to go give your podcast a listen and share it with our audience as well. So that's awesome. I didn't know that, Scott.
And you guys have a great podcast. So I'm in a side group that Jeff is a part of, and so I'm blown away. Like we're not at the level you guys are at, but someday we can hope. We can keep trying.
It just takes a lot of nose to the grindstone, work. Jeff and Ray are like relentless. They record every Monday night for hours on end, and I'm just like, whoa, you guys are awesome. So I have them to thank for the amazing podcast because I don't really do anything for it except I was a guest once. So they're the amazing ones. So you're an ELA teacher. What level do you teach, Scott?
I teach 9th and 10th grade.
Oh, cool. I was middle school when I first started my career, and then I bopped down to elementary, and now I'm 9th and 10th grade. So I've kind of been all over the place, but 9th and 10th grade is where I am now. So I'm still getting used to that age. That's fun. I like all the different ages for all their own unique reasons. High school kids are great.
Yeah.
So Scott,
never a dull day, right?
No. And that's why I went into middle school. Initially, I always joke, like as a middle school teacher, it doesn't matter how bad of a day you're having. Your kids that you're trying to teach are going through so much worse. And it just kind of puts everything in perspective. So I enjoy it. All right, Scott. So the chat tonight was all about cross-curricular lessons, and you had a whole series of great questions. I'm just curious of the questions that you put together for the chat tonight. Were there any that you were like really excited to see or interested in seeing what people's responses were? Any questions that you're like, I can't wait for that one?
Right. Totally the pro tips. I think that was my number one. I could see myself making a Wakelet after and just scrolling through those and really taking them in. They came up so fast that it was hard to really internalize everything. I was trying to tweet out my responses as fast as possible, so they didn't sink in as much as I would like, but there was great stuff coming through. I love this chat for that reason.
Yeah. You know, I always find that once I'm done with the live broadcast and then I do some downloading and uploading of the video to YouTube, and generally around 10:30, I'm finally like done with my mastery chat work for the day. And then I go back and look at all the different responses in Twitter, and question 7, which was the pro tips one, is one that I'm like, I'm going to go back and read that because there is gold in that one. Any pro tips that you saw that you were like, Oh, yes, I need to retweet that and tell everybody about that tip right there.
Definitely. There were a number of them that talked about starting small. And another one, I can't remember who sent it. I want to say it's Phil Pulley, but I could be wrong.
Yeah.
Talked about like failure being inevitable. I think when you start anything new, you're going to mess up. It's just the name of the game. And so what you have to do is kind of micro teach and reassess, reevaluate, and just make it better.
Yeah. It's funny. And we've got a book coming out in the next couple months, Teach Better. And one of the chapters is Fail Better. And it's all about failure and how you just have to expect that you're going to fail. And it's what you do with that failure. You can't let that failure cripple you before you even begin. Right. So absolutely. That's a message that I think I say 20 times a day when I'm talking to various teachers. It's okay to fail. Yeah, I love that. And I think, when I saw that question, I loved that question. That was probably my favorite question. And my response was read other standards. I'm surprised sometimes by people I talk to, teachers I talk to, who really don't know what the standards in the other subjects are. And no judgment zone. I just geek out about standards. And so I read standards, which as it's coming out of my mouth, that sounds a little bit ridiculous, but I do. And so for me, I always find it very interesting, leafing through other people's textbooks and reading the standards for other content areas. But that's a really good first step too. Just saying, okay, how do I look at those science standards over there and not freak out about it or not say, I'm going to go do a unit right now, but just start perusing and let the imaginative juices start flowing, and you can start to build some really neat things that way. Absolutely.
I think you're absolutely right with that. And I don't think it's a bad thing. I did that too when the NGSS standards came out. I started taking a look. Right. So once they got released to the public, I got my hands on them. Same with the ISTE standards, even though they're not adopted by my state, I dipped into those and started bringing those in to my curriculum.
Right. Because the more sources of inspiration and information that we can kind of take in and let percolate in our minds, you never know the kind of connections that are going to exist unless you just kind of sit in that creativity and information absorbing mode for a little while. So you and I were like on the same wavelength. Everybody else watching us,
ELA stuff.
But we're there.
The ELA connection.
Yeah. So Scott, I thought that another question in the chat, the pitfalls one. What question was that? It was question 6. So what dangers or pitfalls exist when engaging in cross-curricular activity? And I saw popping up in responses to that question and in responses to some previous ones too, the challenge of people not having colleagues that will jump on board with a cross-curricular unit or interactive lesson or something like that. And I have like my own take on that situation, but what's your advice for a teacher who says, I want to, but nobody will do it with me?
Right. I think you have to just jump in, and it goes back to number 7, start small, because you're going to get some pushback. And when you get that pushback, that's a good sign. If you get some people kind of rolling their eyes, kind of making faces, that's not necessarily a bad thing. That's a sign that you need to keep pushing. You're doing the right thing. If they didn't say anything, then that means you're having less of an impact. But if you're getting the head turns, the eye rolling, the conversations going, you want to get out of the comfort zone, and trying something new is great, and share those results that you're getting. Even if they're not perfect, hey, you have to start somewhere and get a baseline.
Right. And I think that it's so easy to feel like if nobody will do it with you, you can't even start. Like you don't even know where to start, right? But if you are willing to say, okay, well, if nobody wants to do it with me, I'm just going to do it anyway. And I'm going to turn my science lesson into a science, math, interdisciplinary unit, then you're going to be doing a lot of work, right? But, you deciding to just start that can start to like slowly diffuse to the rest of the school over time. You don't have to have somebody there with you, especially when you have like a digital PLN full of people who are like, yeah, let's brainstorm together and figure that out.
That's it right there. leveraging the digital PLN that we have on
so
whatever social networks you're on. Use that, share on there. It really is a safe space. Teachers are great. We all understand. That's what I love about the social media universe with teachers, no matter whether it's Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Voxer, LinkedIn. Our community is so understanding. They're all made up of educators just like you. And so we get it.
It's always kind of pleasantly shocking for me, you know, like social media in some industries or in some, you know, realms can be a really negative space.
Right.
And when you're talking education, it is so infrequent that I come across somebody who's really just kind of that classic definition of a troll, right? Like an internet troll. So many people in education are there just to offer support and offer help. And it's really, really uplifting. So I think we're very fortunate in like this little education bubble that we have this social media phenomenon that seems to really be something special in terms of how social media is used in the world. Educators are doing something right with it, and that's exciting.
No, we are. And I saw some stats saying that educators make up 1/3 of all of the daily tweets. I don't know if that's accurate, right?
I hope it is. That's great.
It could be some fake news. I honestly did not fact check it. I was just thrilled to see that. I want to say it did come from someplace noteworthy, like you know, like New York Times or something, but I can't remember.
It's a phenomenon that is like, when you really step outside of it and look at it, you know, as in the whole world of social media, it's kind of like, oh, something cool is happening here. And I always find myself when I talk to a colleague or talk to another teacher who's not on Twitter, I like it. It's never derisive. It's never looking down, but it's like, seriously, like you just don't understand what you're missing. This passion that exists and this support that is crazy on social media for educators. I'm like, please just make a Twitter account. Make a Twitter account.
Right.
So Scott, were there any other tweets or conversations that stood out to you in the chat tonight that you want to talk about?
Definitely. There was one that somebody posted, I think, for question number 1 when we were talking about the definition of cross-curricular and what that is. And they went on to say how they kind of do it. And so just implementing like one little thing on top of what you're already doing is cross-curricular. So this person had mentioned SEL, and I thought, hey, that's great, right? There isn't like an SEL class, but what a key life skill. I find more and more that I'm having to teach and facilitate discussions around SEL and helping students gain those skills. Like when you're getting overwhelmed, how do you kind of chunk things out to make them manageable for you?
I actually just made a course a couple months ago on social emotional learning, and it's always been something I've been interested in. But since making that course, I'm like, I see it everywhere.
It's everywhere. Every day I'm seeing stuff.
Yes,
and it's great. I'm glad we're going deeper in that area.
Yeah, yeah, and I really do like that. You know, I think the take home message from the chat tonight is it doesn't have to be earth moving, universe shaking, insane cross-curricular learning experiences. It can be this. And that's a great place to start. You know, when I'm coaching teachers and starting to use technology, or coaching teachers in mastery learning or standards-based grading or any of the things that we talk about, I'm like, you don't have to go here. Like, you don't have to go all the way to the other end. You can go this far, and then next time we'll go this far, and then next time we'll go this far, and then eventually it's going to build and build and build. And so I really valued the fact that a lot of teachers were acknowledging that and encouraging each other. Now, I'd hope that some of the teachers reading that actually say, okay, I'm going to just go do it. I'm going to go do this little step, right?
Right.
That's always the goal. It's always the goal.
And I saw some people sharing resources. I know I saw Ray share out, and Tanya shared out some as well. She shared out a blog post. And so that's great. So when I go back through, I'm going to make a collection of all those resources so I can go back and pull from that. A bunch of other people mentioned incorporating it into UDL, like how the standards, you just start with the standards and then go from there. And they talked about PBL, the project-based learning.
Yes,
those are great places to start.
Jeremy's went and he fact checked your statistic. He said from 2004. Oh my gosh, what happened? Hang on. Are you there?
I'm here.
Okay, I don't know what my computer just did. Okay, sorry. He said out of the 500 million tweets that post every day, 4.2 million are related to education. And that's in 2014. I'd be really curious to see what that is now.
Yeah. Can somebody else help us out with that? Yeah.
I'm going to have to go do more digging, right? And then Katie said, just start with 2 standards that lend themselves to and support each other. I feel like if they don't hold each other's hands, go back to the drawing board. And I like that too.
Right.
You don't have to force the connections. And that's why I always tell people, go and read the standards, because the connections will just pop out at you. And you're like, right. I do that like right now already. So just make that connection a little bit stronger. Now, sometimes too, Katie, I will say it's fun to give yourself a challenge of taking like 2 standards that you're like, yeah, no. Those don't work well together. This is like cross-curricular lessons, like level 5. So don't try it yet if you're just getting your feet wet. But I kind of like to challenge myself and say, how can I get really creative with this and come at this in a bit of an unusual way and find a way to connect these standards authentically. So that's kind of like my own little game that I play with it too.
Yeah. Can you think of one where you've done that? Like I know I haven't quite done that level 5 level, but I'm working on some in my mind.
So one of my favorite cross-curricular things that I've ever done is actually a science and a reading, writing cross-curricular unit. And in science, I take space science and ecology, and I smash them, and I layer on reading and writing. So my students actually use research skills to research a planet in the solar system, which is a 5th grade science standard, back when I taught 5th grade. And then they use their understanding of ecology to design living organisms that would be able to adapt and survive and evolve on that planet based on the characteristics of that planet. And then they create a multi-genre writing product with, as a scientist doing a field guide for discovering this planet. So,
hey, I like it. That works
with that unit.
Yeah, my idea is taking a unit, something that's a little less intriguing for the students, something like the Odyssey, and focus maybe on the Battle of Troy right before. I thought maybe build it with some 3D printed sand molds and kind of recreate some of those scenes that we read leading up to the Odyssey. So that's kind of my idea.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many places you can take it. And you know what, that actually leads me, I think, really well to something that I saw one of our participants tweet out near the end. And I don't remember who it was, of course not. I didn't screenshot it. Usually I screenshot so that I can give people credit. They said something about having to be careful that when you're doing cross-curricular connections, it doesn't border into fluff. And so how can you make sure that those connections that you're trying to make, because you know that it's powerful, don't just become, I'm connecting across curriculum in name, but not at a deep enough level to really make sure that I'm getting all that content. And so, you know, I can think of a situation where somebody could make like 3D printed things of Troy, like you just talked about, and use it in a way that is just like, here's a design, go hit play on the 3D printer. And that doesn't really get to some of like the STEM kind of thinking that we can use a 3D printer to do. So you can take the same idea and you can either do it as fluff or you can do it as an actual connection cross-curricularly. And I think that that's a question that we all need to ask ourselves anytime we're doing cross-curriculum. Am I just doing this because it's really cool sounding and that it's going to be awesome? Or am I doing this because it's actually going to serve both content areas at the same time? And so I loved that discussion was coming up too. So many good discussions, so many good conversations today. I like it.
Another one I just saw right now is scrolling back through real quick, and it was like a light bulb for me. A lot of people talked about rapport and relationships with our students and how important that is. So making ourselves vulnerable so that they want to invest in our classroom because we've invested freely in them. And I love that. That's my number one go-to, like day one. Okay, let's start building those relationships.
Yeah, I always, Ray and I always talk, and I have something I always say about relationships. You got to have 1,000 conversations about nothing before you finally get to a point where you get somewhere with a student. And that's really what building relationships is all about, that like constant every day, and that vulnerability that you mentioned, being able to say, we're trying this and here it is, and let's go through this together and experiment together is so powerful. Oh, Katie has a really, really long PLN or a really long comment. Let's see what she says. You're right. Those have been some of the most fun PLCs that have really got us thinking creatively. When I say go back to the drawing board, I guess I mean look at how you're presenting them together. Sometimes it's not the standards. Assessment is a major component that has an effect on what we link together in standards-based grading. I mean, so I always enjoy that no matter what topic we have in Mastery Chat, no matter what topic it is, and we go through a lot of topics. Every week we have a different topic. And there are just like these spider webs of connection between every single thing that we're doing. Like you can't talk about cross-curricular content without talking about standards and talking about how you evaluate students and provide feedback and assessment. And, you know, it just all ties into this big ball. And I think that's one of the greatest challenges we have in education is trying to like unravel this ball and say, okay, where's my entry point towards getting to better learning experiences for my students. And so I love, Katie, that you're throwing out assessment and standards-based grading and all these different things, which just all kind of enfold these ideas that we're talking about. I geek out about education, Scott. What can I say? I could talk for hours about this.
I agree. And to kind of help with that, my go-to is using rubrics. And I just took a course on this at a recent conference. Adam Babcock was the presenter, and he's on Twitter. Wow.
Really?
You know, we really have to be careful, as Katie was kind of pointing out. We really have to address those skills, and the skills have to be tied to those standards, and our wording has to be really clear. And so, you know, look for good examples on that. I know, I think it's PBL World has a great article on that. PBL World?
PBL World?
Yeah.
If you find that, Scott, what I want you to do is I want you to come back into our Facebook page and then share the link in the video when we're all done.
Okay, so it's PBL Works.
PBL Works?
Yeah.
.com?
.org, sorry.
Oh, golly. Okay, it's okay. Ignore that. PBLworks.org. All right. There we go. So now that link is in the comments as well. What's that?
Perfect. They have a bunch of different ones. So there's one on the 4 C's. There's one on, it's like the top 5 rubric mistakes or go-tos. I can't remember if it's what not to do or what to do. It's been a little while since I've read that one, but those are my 2 go-tos.
Do you know Cult of Pedagogy, Jennifer Gonzalez?
Yes, everybody knows her.
I mean, right. Like, how can you not? If you don't know her, you got to go check her out. She's amazing. Right. She has a great blog about 1-point rubrics, which I thought was when I read that, I was like, I never thought of that. And I really kind of like the thinking behind that. So check that out as well. If you're looking to kind of figure out how you can assess and how you can link these standards within this cross-curricular bubble of awesomeness, right? All right, Scott. Well, it is about 9:30. We've been chit-chatting here for like 25 minutes. I think that we could probably talk for another 3 hours, but let's go ahead and wrap this up. Any closing thoughts for us, Scott? Any tidbits of wisdom and insight that you want to share before you go? If not, that's okay. You can just say, it's cool, guys. Bye.
No, definitely share out what you're doing. Whenever I've tried something new out, I share out little bits. I take pictures. Things like that. I might test an idea on my peers before I throw it out to the students, get some constructive criticism. That helps so much. Do not be afraid to share. Share, share, share.
Take advantage of this amazing network of educators that we were just talking about that exists in social media. Take advantage of it and test your ideas out and help them, you know, refine those ideas with this amazing PLN that we are all so fortunate to have. Love it. I expect all of you guys to be sharing out. Use the hashtag Mastery Chat. Tag Scott. Give us all your ideas, and let's all just kind of bring them all together in amazing ways. Real quick before we go, I do want to just real quick mention, I have to, otherwise I think my team will kill me. Tomorrow morning, there is a brand new course coming out at teachbetteracademy.com. It is a course that I made, so I'm pretty excited that it's done and I can put it in there and send it off to all you guys. It's been a lot of work over the last few months, and it is called Effective Technology Integration. It is not a course about a bunch of tech tools. It is a course about how you evaluate technology, how you evaluate the ways you're using it in your classroom, and how you can really use it to not just be a cool tech tool in your room, but actually improve the teaching and learning process. So it's a big course. It's like 2 hours worth of content. If you're a Teach Better Academy member, it will be right there for you tomorrow morning. If not, check it out tomorrow morning. It'll be available, and I can't wait to hear what you think of it. And that's my little ad, or Jeff will yell at me for not saying it. It's a big course, guys. You really should check it out. Scott, thank you again so much for being a part of Mastery Chat tonight. You are now in the Mastery Chat family. You can never escape us, and we appreciate all that you've done for us tonight. Thank you so much, Scott.
Thank you. Bye, guys.
Bye, guys.